All right, Omar, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I'm excited to have you here. We have a little bit of time, so we'll just jump right into it. Tell me a little bit about yourself, like your background, and then we'll talk about the Book of Mormon.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you, Alejandro. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate your invitation. I am Omar Naranjo. I am from Colombia, but I live here in Utah. I've been here for over 7 years. Um, I I am an educator. I am currently teaching mathematics, and I am also working on some other personal projects. And
What
I've been
what level of mathematics do you teach? Like, do you teach in high school, junior high,
Mhm.
college?
I teach high school. I've taught different levels, but I am currently teaching high school. So these are great kids who are kind of like discovering new things, and I am trying to get them with, paying a little bit of attention to math, which is an interesting challenge, but it's nice. I love working with them.
That's awesome, man. My wife is actually a school teacher. She teaches preschool at a private school, so it's not the same level of rigor, but I
Right.
hear like her, I hear about the things that she does to teach children, so it's very cool. That's awesome that you do that, man. I think we need more educators for sure in this country. So
Yeah. It's a wonderful job, and you get a lot of good things out of it. It's nice working with the youth and with children. So I love it. So that's why I'm doing this.
that's great, man. So you're from Colombia. Were you a church member then, or did you become a church member when you came to the US?
I became a church member when I was there. It's been almost 23 years since I joined the church. Although I must mention that the youngest of 10,
Okay.
and my older brothers and sisters had, joined the church when I was little. I was probably 5 or 6 years old. Then different situations, like some of them, now they got married and had their own families and so on.
Yeah.
And I had some contact with church, but then I just lost all contact with church for a few
Oh
years.
wow. Okay.
But I had that initial
Mhm.
contact that remained. So then when I was like 18 or so, almost 19, I was living in another town because I was
Mhm.
starting college. And that's when I decided to join a church.
That's awesome, man. So how old are you when you joined the church?
I was almost 19. And
19.
I would tell you that one of the things, because we're going to talk about the Book of Mormon, and I would
Yeah.
like to point out that the reason, I guess the strongest reason why I decided to join the church was because when I was probably 5, and my brothers and sisters were being taught by the missionaries, there was once this family home evening. They were teaching us how to, do it.
Yeah.
And I got a present from the missionaries. It was a Book of Mormon stories in Spanish.
Oh, cool. Like
And
the
man,
illustrated version.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool, cool.
Let me tell you, I love reading books, and I love
Mhm.
reading ever since I have memory. So that was one of my favorite books, even though had lost contact a few years later. That was something that remained, and I read that book, I can tell you, probably 20 times. So all the stories were present with me, and then they had such a strong influence that a few years later, then I decided to become a church
Awesome,
member.
man. So that's a really wonderful story, man. That's really cool. And I can tell you like reading, man, since you're an educator. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of the people that I've interviewed, I've tried to get like a wide range of people. I interviewed a guy from Spain. I
Hmm.
interviewed an American girl, another girl who I thought was New Zealander, but she's American, but her husband's from New Zealand.
Right.
Um, but
Yeah.
um, but I mean, I live in Utah. I've been here like 20 years. So I'm pretty much a native here in Utah. And so when I talk to people about the Book of Mormon, we kind of have an American sort of background, an American assumption about what the Book of Mormon is supposed to be telling us. But but you read it as an adult. You know, you were almost 19 and you're from Colombia. So what was like, and you said that the stories were like they were pressing to you, like they touched you in a way. So tell me about that. Like, what was it about the stories that like you connected with?
Well, I guess that the experience of reading through the stories, but that sense of expectation of getting to the story of, the Nephites and their visit and the Lord's visit. It was like every single time. It's like when you love a movie so much and then you just love that special scene that of,
Yeah.
you want to watch the movie over and over because of all the things that are happening before until you get to that point. That's what happened when I was reading this Book of Mormon stories, like
Mhm.
preparing myself to the point when the Lord comes and visits the Nephites here in America.
That's cool.
So that was the experience I had every time. So it was very touching, and it was very inspiring as well. Even though I was living a life of a teenager with
Mhm.
probably not a lot. I mean, I just like Niva, I was born of good parents,
Mhm.
and they really made a good effort to teach me good principles. But there is a point of time when you start going out with friends and your life is more your friends than your own family,
Yeah.
and sometimes those principles are kind of fading away because you rather stay with your friends and do things that make them appealing, make
Mhm.
appealing to your friends. But it was such a strong influence that eventually I had to make my own decisions, and I decided to join the church when I was at a different town. And it was interesting because when I joined the church, and then the things that I used to do with my friends, and then we met, and I said, okay, I'm going to meet with you. And then one of my friends asked me, well, then what is this thing that you are not now drinking, like, coffee or tea, or not even having some beers with us or someone? It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just decisions of your life. And it was, for some of them, it was kind of hard to accept that
Yeah.
new person. But for others, it was just like, oh, nice. And they would just like fine with that.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah. So no, that's really cool. And it is, you're right. It's like that's a formative time in someone's life. Like, you know, you just enter adulthood. You have to start making decisions for yourself. Your parents are going to tell you anything,
Yeah.
and like, it's like you're right. Like when you're a teenager, especially like an older teenager, it's like
Hmm.
you're leaving your family, like you're moving away from them a little bit. So that's no, that's really impressive that you were able to find like the missionaries, and then that the Book of Mormon touched you. What was life in Colombia like where you were living? Like what was it like? Because I know in certain regions of South America there's a lot of political turmoil and
Hmm.
poverty. Um so what, like what was the country like when you were a
Hmm.
teenager then?
Okay, I would say that even though my country has plentiful of, of different stories about political turmoil, violence, and different things, I would say that I was blessed, really lucky. I was born and raised in a small town where we knew about things just through TV or radio. We knew things happened around us in different places, in the countryside, far places, but not in my town. So it was a very quiet town, and I will always be thankful for that. So I would say that I was lucky uh, about that. Also, I wouldn't say that I mean, we were not wealthy, but we weren't poor either. So we've got, enough for what we needed. Like, I went to school, my dad working, my mom at home, um, and like friends, like school, like different activities. Some things I could not afford, but it was okay. Some things I could, like, here and there we probably had some nice vacations, but you know on a budget once. And But there were really bad things happening in the country in the meantime, like
Yeah.
uh, drug dealing problems in the 80s, when we had a lot of violence because of that.
Oh
eh,
yeah.
Marxist armed groups trying
Right.
to take over the country. Even by the end of the 90s, when I started college, it was really dangerous for a lot of people. Even politicians were being kidnapped.
Wow.
That was a hard time, and it was in the middle of that time when I was attending college,
Mhm.
and I could, identify people who belong to different far right, far left groups being present there, and uh, doing their thing, trying to gain people to like their, and to
Yeah.
follow their teachings and so
Yeah, their
on.
ideology. Yeah.
Ideology, exactly. Yeah. So for both sides, like far left, far right, in the middle of peace talks that failed at that time.
Wait, so then, so when you were in college, is that when you converted to the church, or was this after you had converted to the church?
Okay, so when I finished high school, then I spent 1 year serving in the police force. Just, instead of going to the army, I could go to the police, and then once I finished that year, then I went to study to that town,
Mhm.
and probably 1 year into that, uh, I just woke up this morning, and I said, okay, I'm gonna go to church. And I knew that there was a building close to my home, and then and they started their sacrament meeting like at 9, so I
Oh.
arrived at 9:10 or so. But it was interesting because I was just not dressed like that, but just like a kind of a
Yeah.
casual dress dressing. So it was interesting because I was in the back, so there were some people there with me. So they gave me a hymn book, and okay, I was an investigator. I had all the picture.
Yeah, like
I was an
you look the
investigator,
part.
but then they gave me the hymn book, and I recognized the songs from when I was, just a child. And I went to church with my brothers and sisters. So I was singing. So people next to me were like, what's going on? Seems like an investigator, but this guy is kind of singing. So it was nice. And then when that meeting finished, I told him, I'd like to talk with the missionaries. Oh yeah, they're over there. There were 4 missionaries in that ward. And then, okay, hey, my name is Omar. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I'm Elder. I don't remember their names exactly, but I said, hey, all right, this is the first time I come here. I'm not a member of the church, but I told them a little bit about my story. And I said, I would like to have the lessons, please, because I want to join the church. So missionaries were like, what? Wait a minute. Like,
Yeah, that's awesome,
it's like the
bro.
kind of thing that you cannot believe when you're a missionary,
Yeah, man,
right?
pan comido right there, bro.
Exactly. Yeah. So the thing
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that
that's awesome.
even though it was the closest building to my home, because of the boundaries, that wasn't the one I was assigned to. So that was a little bit
That always
disappointing.
happens,
The
man. That
missionary,
always happens
like,
with
hey,
us.
where do you live? All right, this street and this street. I said, oh no, you're just like, oh, 1 block away from our boundaries. And no, you have to attend in this other one. But then they gave me their contact information. I mean, and they also got my contact information to meet with the missionaries from the other ward. And then that's how the story began, right? So I was 1 year in college, and then 6 weeks later, I joined the church, and I waited 6 weeks because I called one of my brothers and I told him, hey, I'm joining the church. Do you want to come and baptize me? And he said, oh yeah, great, but I can this date maybe. So I waited probably two
Oh,
weeks.
okay.
You know,
So wait, so your family was already members of the church?
some of them.
Oh, okay,
My,
okay.
my parents were not members of church,
Hmm.
But most of my brothers, most of my siblings, some of them kept going to church, some of them just
Hmm.
stopped going to church. So I specifically called this one because he was one of those who, even through my teenage years, had been kind of like,
Oh,
here and
okay.
there advising and keeping track of what I was doing, like kind of
Nice.
like
Yeah.
this big brother who is kind of
Yeah.
making sure that you are not, doing bad things
Bad
and
things. Yeah.
getting into troubles and so on. But yeah, it was
So
nice.
no, that's awesome. That's a wonderful story, and I'm glad your brother got to baptize you. That's so special.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So a few things like call my attention. So I served in Florida
Mm.
um back in 2012, and Florida is kind of, I don't know, have you been to Florida?
Just once.
Yeah.
So
So, Miami, Naples, Tampa, it's like, everyone's there, from everyone from Brazil, Haiti,
yeah,
Cuba, Colombia, Venezuela, everyone, right?
yeah,
And so I got to, and a lot of them were immigrants. I got to talk to a lot of them, and kind of like help them, understand the Book of Mormon. And a lot of the younger people that I would talk to, like in their early 20s, who were immigrants here, they had different types of questions. They were more scientifically minded, let's say,
yeah,
and they would ask me questions, like that were more sophisticated, like, how
yeah.
does God know everything? How can we
Mm.
know everything? And have free will, or how can you justify the existence of God if bad things happen to good people?
Right.
Fair questions, right? But so you're in early college, at the time you're joining the church, and so you were getting an education, and you're an educator now. So how has the like what was your impression of the Book of Mormon at the time, and then how has it changed over the years? As now you're more mature, you're an educator, so I mean you're not a dumb person, let's say. you
Mm.
know you're probably a good teacher. So like how has your understanding of the Book of Mormon changed over the years?
I have come to appreciate it even more throughout the years. I know that, eh, I am aware of the what you have just mentioned, people asking questions about not only about God, but about the origins of the book itself and so on. But I would say that recently on Twitter, I read something that resonated a lot with me as well. This young lady, said something like this: you can say anything you want about the Book of Mormon, and you can doubt as much as you like, as much as you want. You are the intellectual part of yourself has doubts, and that's part of our nature. But there is something that she mentioned is, but you cannot take away from me the fact that the Book of Mormon saved my life. That's how she pointed that out. And I
Yeah,
was
I saw
impressed.
that, and that was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So thinking about that, I would say, I don't know what kind of experience she went through to a point that she could say that it saved her life. Maybe it's literal or maybe figurative. I don't know. But it still it's a very interesting point because I could say something similar. Uh, a big part of who I am currently, now in my 40s, is because of the teachings contained in the Book of Mormon. So I am not going to say that I intellectually I haven't had doubts. No, yeah, I have had doubts about certain things about the book. But the thing is that it's been such a jewel for me, something so valuable, spiritually talking, and the influence it's had on me, that, man, I just cannot deny that. I mean, the way or the person I am spiritually, the husband I can be, and the dad, the father I can be, a lot of influence has been coming through the Book of Mormon teachings. So, I mean, say anything you want to say about
Right.
the book. Yeah.
No, that's a really good point. It's like pragmatic, you know,
Yes.
it's like it's helping you become like a good person, the best person that you can be. And I think too, like when I think about my experience with the Book of Mormon and with the church in general, you know, my when I was growing up in the church, my dad, he would tell me, you know, hey, you know, you're a deacon, you have responsibilities, you need to do those responsibilities as best as you can. Like it depends on you to get those things done, even if it's small, you know, like collecting fast offerings or
Hmm.
picking up the trash in church, whatever, right?
Right.
um and like that like instilled in me like an ethic, you know, like
Hmm.
anything I do, like I'm gonna do it 100%, you know. And I have the church to thank for that. So no, I mean, I think you bring up a really good point. So do you, oh, go
Let
ahead.
me add something about that initial question you made, because every time, and this is something that I have tried to do ever since I became a member and I joined the church, is that once I finish reading the book, I start over, right? Finished, okay, start over, and so on. Hasn't been perfect, but I've been trying to do that like that way. So uh, I remember some weeks ago, again on Twitter, when I found, I was interacting with someone who mentioned something about the Book of Mormon not being something of value to him. I guess it was a guy. So I was thinking, well, it's interesting because every single time, and this I can tell, every single time I find something really valuable from the stories that I had not noticed before, starting from the experiences of Lehi, Nephi, then going through the allegory. And that was like, you find a lot of treasures there.
Oh yeah.
I am currently preparing a series of presentations about the the wars when Captain Moroni, led the Nephite army, because you can find so many things. In this case, the ones that I am currently preparing are based on a military perspective. I recently read a book that contains a lot of information about how accurate the story is, and these are kind of like bonuses, now not talking about like the spiritual part of it, but also about
Right.
those historically accurate elements that the book has. And I think that is also something that is rewarding to the intellectual part of yourself, right?
Definitely.
Although, I must point out that it's also, and the most important part of it, that all the jewels that you might find from the spiritual point of view, you can also find some intellectual ones that are worth, going over. Philosophical as well, like Second Nephi has a very interesting. Like some years ago, I read about that, and one friend of mine told me about a friend of his who had a lot of good things to say about how Second Nephi has interesting philosophical points, and I say, well, that's nice about the
That's cool. Yeah.
good and the difference between good and evil, or how they are
Right. Yeah.
connected and so on. So, well, and you don't find these kind of things elsewhere, right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Um, for you, what are some of your favorite or like the parts of the Book of Mormon that you find to be like the most beautiful, or the parts that have touched you the most?
Well, um, the first that comes to mind is Ether chapters 2 and 3. Uh, the experience of the brother of Jared, of Mahonri,
Mhm.
Wow, man. I remember like probably 12 years ago, I was in an interview with a young lady. I was a bishop in that time. And I remember that she was telling me about certain challenges she had. And all of a sudden, that story came to my mind. And I said, you know what? And when you read that part of the story, when he has two issues with the ships, right? Okay, there's no air, there's no light. And I told her, you have no air, you die. You have no light, you can survive. It's gonna be hard, but I mean, you will make it through. So I told her, don't worry. The Lord will take care of the things that are essential for your salvation, and He will tell you exactly what to do. And that's what Mahonry uh, had in front of him. He had the problem of the air, and you read that the Lord told him exactly what he had to do in order to solve that air issue. So when he realized that there was the light problem, he said, okay, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to ask the Lord, and he will for sure tell me exactly what to do. But then the Lord told me, hey, what do you want me to do? So then I told this young lady, well, there are some times when the Lord is going to ask you, all right, what's your plan? And then I don't know, maybe your plan is not going to be the best. So I don't know how Mahonry came up with just like these white stone 16. And he was like, you know what? If you just
Yeah.
touch it with your finger, then I know that it's going to work. So that is the
Hmm.
point, right? So
Yes.
I was so impressed at that point when I realized, and honestly, it didn't come from me. I would say this was just inspiration with the calling I had in that moment as a bishop, when I thought and I had the right answer for this young lady, and it was so inspiring. And man, I really felt such a strong spirit when I thought, well, yes, there are some times when the Lord is going to ask you, hey, what is your plan? And don't feel so stressed that you don't know what to do, because just bring whatever you have in mind and just trust him, have enough faith so that things are going to work out. So it's been, wow, wonderful. And then even better,
Yeah.
once when some years later a friend of mine shared a blog entry with me with a talk given by Elder McConkie. And here you go. Brother McConkie, Elder McConkie, had shared something very similar to what I had shared with this sister. And I say, wow, wow, an apostle of the Lord
That's
shares
awesome, man.
to what I had
That's so
shared.
cool.
So, wow, that was really wonderful. That was a really wonderful experience.
No, that's a beautiful story, and it's a beautiful life lesson. I think about my own life, and when what you're saying, and I think as a missionary, we're taught a lot of the times, like, pray, the Lord is going to inspire you to know what to do, and then you kind of build an expectation, like, I'm going to know beforehand exactly what to do. But then you get people like Nephi, they don't know beforehand what they're going to do. They don't know.
Yeah.
They don't. And then like you get to those moments where it's like the turning point, and
Yes.
then like the Lord, like, it's like he blesses your plan. It's like, okay, it's gonna work out. Just do what you need to do, and it'll work out better than not doing anything. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
yeah, like like in my life, my family's had struggles, and we've made plans, and it's a miracle that they worked, but they worked. So, um, well,
Eh,
that's really awesome.
Because,
Go
can
ahead.
you hold a sec? Because there's someone in here waiting for me. So just hold a sec.
Yeah,
All right. Sorry. I can't hear you.
there we go. I was on mute.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
mistake.
All right.
Okay, so um, for anyone, so I think we'll end with this. For anyone who hasn't read the Book of Mormon, or who you know, hasn't isn't a member of our church, what would you tell to them? Like what would you tell to them? What has been, you know, what would you want them to know about, what would they gain from reading the book, or from joining our services or things like that?
Right. Okay. Talking about the book, um, one of the things that I would say is that what I mentioned earlier, um, I am really happy with the person who I am. Yeah. It's not bragging. It's just like feeling whole, feeling that I am having a good life. I am leading a good life, that I have a family, my lovely wife, my lovely daughters, and an essential part of it is what you will find in the Book of Mormon. And there's this part of the story in Alma 32 when Alma is talking with the Zaramites, the poor ones, the ones that have been rejected. And I would say, I know that for some people, it's hard to believe, and I get it. But what Alma says is, just if you only have a like the desire, that if you just wish, right, just give it the chance. So I would say, just give the book a chance. Just read it with an open mind. Read it with, just like Moroni tells us, right? Ponder, ponder those things, and then if you do it with an honest heart, just give it a try and see what happens. Uh, let's say that you read it and then you say, okay, yeah, thank you, good book. Okay, no problem. But give it a chance. I would like anyone who those who even criticize the book to give the book a chance, because honestly, sometimes I read some critics, and the things they say immediately tell me that they haven't even taken the time to read the book, and that's sad. I'm really sad for them, because I think, well, honestly, all these years, every time I read the book, I find pearls, jewels. I mean, it's a treasure. So every single time I find something new in the stories, even in the stories of wars, even in the ways that Moroni helped his people defeat the Lamanites, or how the Lamanites eventually became more faithful, people than the Nephites themselves. So many things that if you just do it with a sincere heart, just like you read in Moroni, I mean, it you will be a different person before and after. So I would just say, give it a chance.
Awesome. That's so cool. No, that's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I can uh, uh testify to that, it has a transformative power. You are a different person
Indeed.
when you read like what happens to these people, like what the challenges that they go through. It's like you change the person, and like that, you can't deny that it has the power to change someone. So that's cool,
Absolutely.
man. All right. Well, thank you so much, Omar. This has been a wonderful conversation. I think I'm gonna keep doing this after the semester ends. So, if you want to do round two, I'm happy to have you on, and we'll make it work.
Man, I am always happy to talk about the Book of Mormon. I could still be like hours and hours talking about all the things that I have learned from the book. So sure, Alejandro, thank you so much for your invitation, and it's been wonderful to talk about something that I really, really love, and talking about the Savior and how I have learned to love the Savior through the teachings of the Book of Mormon. So, I'm always happy to talk about it anytime you want. So, second round
Awesome.
for sure. Just tell
Sweet.
me.
Sounds good, man. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Okay.